Sequels are almost guaranteed in the gaming world. If something is successful, if a game is successful, we'll probably have another one in that franchise. It's kinda different to how things work with movies, for example. Nowadays, movies are very franchise driven, but in the past, usually the writer or the director would have an idea with a story starting with a beginning, with a middle, and with an end, and that's it. But in the gaming world it's different because people are not usually looking for the story in a game, they are looking for gameplay. So they want to see more of that style, of that gameplay style, they want to see that game with better graphics in the next generation, so usually we expect to see a sequel from a game. And of course, if we're talking about franchises and video games, we have to talk about Nintendo, because they are basically the king of the franchises. Nintendo has a gigantic number of franchises, and usually they are always developing the next one, the next Mario, the next Zelda, the next anything. Sometimes they create something new, but usually they are continuing the franchise that they already created. And usually people are always excited for the next one. However, recently we had something interesting with Splatoon 3, the third entry in the Splatoon franchise. The majority of people are definitely excited to play Splatoon 3. But there's also a number of people who have some mixed feelings about it. Because here's the thing, we have sequels in the game world, but they have to justify itself. They have to bring new stuff, they have to look more impressive, they have to be something worthy of us paying again for that kind of experience. And some people feel that Splatoon 3 maybe is not offering enough, which is kind of a tricky conversation, because Splatoon 3 is definitely offering a lot of new stuff, but it is using the same base from Splatoon and Splatoon 2. And it feels a little bit weird because this is the third game running on a similar engine, on a console with a similar hardware, comparing the Wii U with the Switch. So it feels for a long time now that Splatoon has been really similar. And when talking about Nintendo, we kinda always expect them to reinvent the wheel in a sequel. When we look to all the games in the main Mario, the 3D Mario series, or we look at the Zelda games, they always try something different and something new. And those games are usually developed in a similar space of time of Splatoon. Splatoon 3 is coming 5 years after Splatoon 2. That's usually the time that Nintendo takes to develop a new Zelda, to develop a new Mario, to develop a new big game in their franchises. Of course, it's not always like that. Not all Nintendo games receive that same level of attention in their sequels, because here's the thing, what defines the most important thing that defines if a game will have a sequel? Money. Of course it is money. If a certain game is selling very well, if a lot of people are buying these games, the company will see and say, okay, we have to release another one so we can receive even more money. So there are moments with some specific franchises that Nintendo it feels to me that they are just releasing to get a little bit more money from that franchise. We have, for example, the new series, what they did with the series on the DS, 3DS, Wii and Wii U, with all games looking really similar, and we know that these games sold a lot. And we also have the Pokemon series, which is more of the Pokemon company issue, but they are nowadays Pokemon is almost releasing every single year. And a lot of the times Pokemon games are coming out and they are clearly rushed, lacking that level of quality that we come to expect from these franchises. In general, we all know that the Pokemon games, looking at the recent ones, we all know that the series could benefit from a little more time in the oven. I still don't think not even Pokemon, not even the new series, is to the level of something like FIFA or those other sports games which every year they are super similar with just some small updates. I don't think they are to that level, but I really don't like the thing of yearly releases for those big games, for those big adventures. However, I don't want to say that every time Nintendo is only looking for money, because a lot of the time it can be a bit naive to think of that, but I think that's true. A lot of the time they release a new game because they had a new idea, because there's a developer who really wants to publish something like that. The first Splatoon is a great example. Nintendo could have used one of their IPs, but they decided to create a new IP. And it was a super success, it was super creative and super different from everything that they were producing at the time. And a lot of the time people ask, oh, why Nintendo is not releasing a specific new game for a franchise, why there's not a sequel? And then they will come out and say, oh, we did not release a sequel for this game because we did not have a great idea yet, a creative idea for a new sequel. For example, F-Zero I think is the classic one. People always ask Miyamoto, I always ask Nintendo why there's not a new F-Zero, and they say, oh, we don't have a new idea for that. I can kinda understand what they're trying to say, but it sounds a little BS because like when you look at Zelda, when you look at Mario, they're never expecting a new idea to produce a new game on this series. And as I said before, it's the money talking. Those series will always sell, and F-Zero, it's a series that never sold to the level of those other ones. Of course, the series can always come back, and we hope that maybe one day Nintendo will actually say, okay, let's develop a new game because people really want to play this one. But anyway, it's funny to see the different approaches that they have with sequels. And then going back to Splatoon 3, I don't know exactly where it sits, because it is treated as one of Nintendo's biggest series, because it has a long development time, like 5 years to release Splatoon 3, and also we know that Splatoon is selling to the level of those big names. Splatoon is one of the biggest selling franchises from Nintendo at the moment, and it's a huge success in Japan. So I know why they are developing one, and they are giving a lot of attention. The level of polish is incredible, even if you argue that it is not that new of an experience. I think maybe the overall struggle here with Splatoon is how hard it is to develop sequels for multiplayer experiences. Nintendo has a lot of multiplayer series like Splatoon, like Super Smash Bros, like Mario Kart, and with each new entry it feels like the next one has a biggest challenge. Because look, for example, Super Smash Bros Ultimate. How will Nintendo ever develop a sequel to that? It's really hard, right? It is the pinnacle of the series. Super Smash Bros Ultimate has a lot of characters, has a lot of stages, the gameplay is perfected, so it's really hard. And then we have Mario Kart 8. It's been like 8 years and we did not receive a new Mario Kart. And it is hard to argue because the game is selling a lot and because people seem to be satisfied with it. Of course, some hardcore fans are asking, where is the new Mario Kart? At this point we should have already received a new Mario Kart. But no, we are still with the same one, and it is not a bad game. It still looks very nice, it still is a great experience. So sometimes for those multiplayer experiences, when the gameplay is already perfected and the actual game is really good, it's hard to imagine a sequel. And not only that, but people are already used to that style of gameplay that is great. I don't see the point of why Nintendo will change the gameplay of Splatoon. Players are already used to that style on the turf wars, on the ranked battles, so it's always a little bit hard to how they can innovate, how they can create a new experience without losing what made it so special in the first place. So it's really hard. A lot of people would argue that for a game like Splatoon, Nintendo could just use a system of updates, paid updates, something like that, so you don't have to actually release a new game. But then here's my point. I don't think to release an update and to release a new game is the same thing. Because the mindset from the developers and from Nintendo, from the marketing standpoint, it's different. It will always not be the same thing, exactly the same thing, an update to a new game. When you look at the last direct for Splatoon 3, you could see so many small things that are new. Not only the core gameplay style still is the same, but there's some stuff better in the infrastructure, in the actual way that the game works, and the setting is completely different. So it gives the feeling that it is a new project, that developers actually were thinking about a new game. And I think when you say about a new update, it is a completely different thing. It will not be sold in the same way, it will not be developed in the same way. If you want to hear my conclusion about this whole story of sequels and stuff like that, I really like Nintendo's approach when they give all their attention for these games, like with 5-6 years of development. I think that's the right call. It doesn't matter if it is like Splatoon, if it is a Smash, if it is a new Zelda, if it is Xenoblade. I think they have to give the time for the developers to actually work on something. If we receive a game that it is completely crazy and innovative like Breath of the Wild, or something a little more conservative but keeping what made the game great in the first place, like Splatoon 3, I think the most important thing is that the final result is a great game, is a great product with a lot of polish. That's the most important thing. And if a series gets to the point that all the games are really similar, I don't think Nintendo should go to the route of free updates or to monetize the game in any other way like Fortnite and stuff like that. I think Nintendo should really reinvent the wheel again. So, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was the pinnacle for the series. Try something completely different in the next one, make a 3D fighting game, or I don't know, something different, something to keep that new and interesting. That's exactly what they did with Breath of the Wild. The Zelda formula was becoming kind of stale, so they decided to shake things, to make something completely different, and it worked. Sometimes it will not work, it's something really bold at the end of the day, but I think it's the best way. So yeah, Splatoon 3 will be fun, will be great, there's a lot of new stuff, but it will not be super exciting for those that are expecting something completely new in the series. But for the next one, like let's say that it is on the next console, I want to see something completely different. Now is the time to reinvent the wheel. I can understand why they are still being a little conservative with Splatoon 3 because it feels like not, but Splatoon is relatively super new for Nintendo. It's a relatively new series, so they don't want to lose that freshness from the first game just yet. So yeah, I like the approach of a new game, of something completely new, of giving us an experience worthwhile of paying a full price. Now, if Nintendo is developing something that is rushed, that does not deserve a full price, like some of the sport games with those free updates model, like some of the Pokemon games, I think that's the worst case scenario. I don't have a problem with Splatoon 3. The game looks super fun, the game has a lot of contents, has new settings, you can see that the developers worked on that with a lot of passion, so that's fine, even if it is a little conservative, the approach that they followed. But if they give enough time to the developers to make everything goes right, that's enough for me. With that said, I'm really curious to see what you think about Nintendo's approach with sequels. Do you like it so far? Do you also see those problems with some rushed projects? What is your overall opinion on that? Please leave your comment below and we can talk more about that. But from me, that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye!